All right, let's talk some NHL here, Stefano, and some news and notes. What do you got for us?
All right, well, Renaud Lavoie of RDS today leaked out a list of teams that Jarome Iginla would accept a trade to from Calgary, and that list includes the Pittsburgh Penguins, probably not now since they got Brendan Morrow, the Boston Bruins, Chicago Blackhawks, or the LA Kings. Which team do you see of these remaining three? I would say Pittsburgh's pretty much out of the race now, but which would be the best fit for a guy like Iginla?
I think the Bruins. The Bruins are a team they're the big bad Bruins. Iginla's the guy who's not afraid to drop the gloves, even though he's also a scorer, a right shooter as well. I think the Bruins would be the best fit for him. Do I see it happening? Well, it's tough to say, but the Blackhawks are interesting because Marian Hossa right now is day-to-day, and he's a right winger. So the question is he going to be back, and is he going to be 100% going into the postseason? I think the Blackhawks are probably evaluating Hossa, and if it really is a serious injury, they may push even harder to get Iginla.
And speaking of the Penguins, as we said before, Brendan Morrow, of course, going to them today. And obviously, like you said before, we touched on it, this was a top six forward type of deal that the Penguins were looking for a while. Do you see them pulling off anything else before the deadline, or are they pretty much set now with their roster?
I think they could go after a defenseman. I think it's a veteran defenseman. You know how Niskanen worked out so well for them when they acquired him. I think that this is a team that's never done looking. Ray Shero's always looking, kind of like his compatriot in the state of Pennsylvania, Holmgren. But obviously, the Flyers right now need a whole lot of help.
And elsewhere today, of course, the Lightning have let go of Guy Boucher. Of course, just 2 years removed from leading the Tampa Bay Lightning to the conference final. And Bob McKenzie of TSN has reported that longtime Sabres coach Lindy Ruff could possibly be the replacement for Guy Boucher in Tampa Bay. And is this exactly what the kind of coach Tampa Bay needs? Like experienced, respected around the league, he demands discipline of his players, probably would want stingier defense. Is this exactly the kind of guy that the Lightning should bring in?
Well, you have a guy like Steven Stamkos. I don't know if you want to compare him to a guy like Vanek, who Lindy Ruff has coached in Buffalo, a right shooter, a sniper, a guy who's had 50 goals in the league in Vanek. I would think that Yzerman would want to bring in a guy who could take advantage of the skill set of Steven Stamkos and some of the offensive players that they've now acquired. Corey Conacher is in a huge drought right now, only one goal in something like his last 10, 12 games, the rookie for Tampa Bay. But they have a guy named Alex Killorn as well that they've called up who looks pretty good as well, 6'2", strong guy who's performed pretty well in his early stages of his career. St. Louis looks like he's ageless, looks like he'll be there for another couple of years. He's a guy who can run and gun. So you would think they'd want to bring in a guy who's a little more offensive-minded than a guy like Lindy Ruff. I also don't think they have the horses on the back end to play a Lindy Ruff style. Matt Carl, obviously Hedman is a stud, but I just don't think they have enough good defensemen to play a Lindy Ruff style, and bringing him in, to me, wouldn't be all that great unless you had some really strong defensive prospects.
All right, a team we got a good look at this week is the Buffalo Sabres, of course, taking 3 straight this week, and a lot of talk going into this week how the Sabres were out of it and they should be looking to sell off their pieces. But now all of a sudden they're only 2 points out of a playoff spot, 30 points behind Carolina and New York. They have played a couple more games, but still they are right in the playoff race now. And we've been talking about them as sellers all year at the trade deadline. But now all of a sudden is there a possibility of being a buyer with Darcy Regeer's job probably on the line? I
think you'll have to see another couple 2-3 more wins in a row. You mentioned the big factor there, that's the games in hand for the other teams. If they can pull off, though, 2-3 more wins in a row, they've really positioned themselves quite well going into that trade deadline, and then all bets are off. I don't think they're going to acquire anything. I think they'll stand pat with what they have, and I don't know if that's enough. But, yes, I think there's a chance that they won't sell off any of those assets. I mean, who would they sell off right now? Maybe Pominville or some of these guys, but this is a team that lives and dies with Ryan Malone, who's had a decent year, not a great year, and against the Canadiens, he looked pretty darn good. So if they get that Ryan Miller, looking ahead, then certainly the Sabres should be in the playoff mix.
Some bad news came in for the New Jersey Devils today. Ilya Kovalchuk out 2 to 4 weeks with a shoulder injury, and of course the Devils 4 points up on a playoff spot ahead of the Rangers. How devastating could this be? They just got Martin Brodeur back, and now they lose one of their top forwards.
Well, if it's 2 weeks, it's not devastating. It's just bad luck, and then I think they can forge ahead and get through it. If it's 4 weeks, then I think it's devastating. That's how close the race is right now for the playoffs. There are teams like Toronto and New Jersey and Carolina that are kind of susceptible to maybe some of the teams behind them, like the Rangers and the Buffalo Sabres, and even the Capitals, who are still sniffing around. But to me, if the Capitals get in, it's going to be a product of overtaking Winnipeg, and Winnipeg just falling off the map for that division, the Southeast Division. But it's a good question you raise about the Devils and whether or not they're going to be in the mix. Brodeur's back. He's going to have to steal a few games here to keep them in the mix if Kovalchuk is out for up to 4 weeks.
All right, last night, the Toronto Maple Leafs getting back on track with a big win over the Boston Bruins, and the Leafs now 5 points up on the New York Rangers, who are in ninth place. And we keep running out of time here. We keep waiting for the Maple Leafs to drop out of it. They looked like they were in danger of doing so, but now all of a sudden with a big win last night, do you see them keeping it up and squeaking into the playoffs?
Well, I don't think anybody saw Nazem Kadri playing this well this early in his career. I mean, the guy's in, the top 20 right now in scoring? It's unbelievable, and he did it in the Bruins last night. I think if he continues to play the way he does and the goaltending is decent, then, I don't think there's any reason why the Maple Leafs can't make the playoffs. It makes me sick to say that, but, certainly it's a definite possibility at this point. Now, the only caveat here is the defensive breakdowns that the Leafs have been prone to in recent years continuing to happen, and a team like the Rangers getting hot and really just, pushing in. 5 points is not a whole lot. I understand we're getting close to the playoffs, but there's still a lot of time left. We're not talking about 5 or 6 games and a maximum of, 12 points to get for some of these teams. We're looking at how many games left? 15, 18 games, 20 games? There's a few games left here, folks, and there's still time for teams to crap out. Canadians obviously will be in the playoffs. I don't know if it'll be as a 1, a 2, or even a 4, or 5, or 6 seed right now, but definitely a team like the Maple Leafs right now are well positioned.
We had said last week some teams on the bubble likely to make a run to the playoffs, turning things around. We said the Philadelphia Flyers likely would have been the team to do it because they have done it before, but now a couple weeks later and they're still slipping in the standings, now tied with Tampa Bay down in 14th. So with the Flyers, does Peter Laviolette, is he on the hot seat? Do the Flyers, Holmgren, of course, a very aggressive general manager, does he go for anything, or is this whole thing unraveling for the Flyers?
I'll tell you what, in about 5 minutes' time, the Philadelphia Flyers will drop the puck with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, Flyers won't drop the puck. The ref will do that. But this is a big game tonight. Flyers, I don't know how this works with the schedule in a condensed year, but the Flyers haven't played since Tuesday. They've had 5 days off after a tough loss. If the Flyers don't rebound tonight with a big victory over Pittsburgh, then I think there's going to be some serious inner chats between the general manager and the owner, Ed Snyder, who's obviously a guy who would like to see that team back in the hunt. This is going to be a very interesting game tonight. It could be a bellwether game for the Flyers the rest of their season. There's no excuses anymore. This is a team that went out and got Simo Gagné to help for depth. They have Scott Hartnell back in the lineup. Obviously, they're missing Pronger, but they got Meseros back. They're at almost full strength right now, and there's no reason why the Flyers can't go on a bit of a run. They have the same personnel as they had last year when they were pretty darn good against Pittsburgh, I might add, in that first round. The X factor for them, obviously, is Ilya Bryzgalov. If he can play good goaltending, not even great, good goaltending with that offense, boy, I think Flyers can put a run together, but time is running out. Look for this game tonight. If they get blown out in Pittsburgh, wow, I could see Laviolette gone this week. If they can squeak out a victory tonight, it's going to be interesting down the stretch. They're, to me, the most intriguing team in the last few games in the Eastern Conference, because if they can win some games in a row, Holmgren is going to be active at that deadline. Meanwhile, who's been very quiet this year for them? Claude Giroux. So if he can step it up, Flyers still have a chance.